Hey gang, it's Bryan from FXBilliards. Today, I'm going to talk to you about mistakes you make during your practice sessions. Now, there are dozens. This could be a 5-hour long video, frankly. I am going to cover some of the more common ones, some of the ones that come to mind, because they're the ones that I see most frequently. And you will have enough ammunition at the end of this video to analyze your own practice sessions and see, do you have any of these characteristics or the other 10,000 things you might be doing wrong during your practice sessions that could be corrected. So let's get started. Those of you familiar with FXBilliards and my teachings know that we like to call this the acid test. This is the way the acid test works. You line 5 balls across the table and you shoot them into the far corner pockets. You take ball in hand and you do it again. Now what you're doing is shooting the balls the length of the table and drawing the cue ball back to this short rail that you're shooting from. The acid test is a very good baseline for telling you some of the things that players do wrong. So, number 1 on the list, shooting the exact same shot repeatedly. The great thing about the acid test is you're approaching all of these balls at different levels of difficulty. The closer you get to the rail, the more difficult the shot becomes. As you move out, the shot becomes a little bit easier because you have a bigger target. One of the things that you can do with this is take ball in hand, but give yourself a difficult shot. So if I want to play the 5 ball in that corner pocket and draw the cue ball back to the rail, I can do that and make the shot more difficult. So I can change this up. But this is one of the mistakes that I see a lot of guys making. They'll shoot the 6 ball into that corner pocket, and then they'll bring another ball out and put it there and shoot it again and shoot it again and shoot it again. And I know this is what they're doing even when I don't watch them because I find the reinforcements on their table. So if you don't know what those are, they're the little round paper things that you stick to the table and you can put the ball there so you can shoot the same shot over and over again. Well, you become very good at shooting that ball from here in that pocket. In the real world, you're going to shoot one of these out of every 10,000 shots. Hate to break the news to you, but if you're moving that ball around, if you're moving the cue ball around and then working that shot, you have a more real world scenario. So, number 1 on the list, putting variety in these shots that you're taking. Number 2, not putting in enough reps. I talk to guys every week and they're very proud of themselves. They say, Bryan, I shot 10 draw shots this week and 10 follow shots. And no, Steph Curry shoots 1,000 3-pointers in practice. Shooting 10, 15, or even 20 of anything is not practice. You haven't put in enough reps to make it meaningful. So, number 2, put in your reps no matter what the drill is. If you're shooting the acid test, I like to shoot it 10 times, and that's 50 shots, 50 long draw shots that I'm shooting. Actually, these are mid-range draw shots, which will bring me to the next point in a second. Number 3, don't shoot shots over and over again that aren't common. You may have difficulty drawing the cue ball back from there to this rail. But for you to spend a half an hour trying to do it is insane unless you have 8 hours a day to practice. And why is it insane? Because unless you have the acid test down, this shot does nothing for you. Not to mention, this is an extremely rare circumstance that you're shooting a ball that is 6 feet away and you need to draw it 6 feet back down to this rail. It comes up in games, but it's too rare for you to spend a half an hour on every time you come to the table. Now, I grew up playing a lot of street ball. That's why I reference basketball all the time. And I would see kids, 9, 10 years old at the courts, and they'd spend a half an hour shooting from half court and counting down 3, 2, 1 and shoot the ball from half court. Well, I got news for those kids. You're not getting better at anything, not even shooting from half court. you are wasting time when you could be practicing. So if you are shooting shots that aren't common enough for you to be putting in the time to practice them, or you're shooting trick shots. Trick shots are something that you learn because you've put in the time and done everything else that you need to do to be a winning player. If you want to pick up a trick shot every now and then, go ahead. But you know that if you put in 2 hours on a trick shot, that is something that you did not get good at that day, which could have been your position play, your draw shot, your follow shot, your force follow, whatever it might have been, suffered because you spent that time trying to do a trick shot that you'll never perform for anyone probably ever. So keep that in mind. Get in your reps and get in reps on things that are important. Next on our list, make sure you are practicing properly. If your form is out of whack, your bridge is weak, your stance is weak, and you practice it over and over again, you get very good at shooting the ball incorrectly. And I can speak for myself. I spent 30 years doing certain things incorrectly, and a lot of professional players, a lot of big time names that you would recognize, do certain things different than what we would teach someone to do these days. But it is so ingrained in them that you can't change it. But what happens when you are practicing doing something with the wrong form or the wrong fundamentals or whatever is you can still be a great player because you're making an adjustment for it. But when things start to break down, it is very difficult to get things back in line. It is very difficult to have a coach come in and get things back in line, because if you hire a coach to come in and fix your game after you've been doing it wrong for 5,000 hours over your lifetime, it is very difficult for that person to take what you have now and correct it. So even though you might see some things from some players like myself that have been around for a long time, don't pick up those habits. If you're a relatively new player, work very strongly on your fundamentals so that you can ingrain them in your game, and when things start to drift, we can always go back to the fundamentals. So work on practicing with things in the right way. Now, there are more than one right ways out there, and some of you think there are only one. You're telling people they're doing the wrong thing. Your feet are too close together. You're not turned the right way. You're bending you're dropping your elbow. This is not a religion, guys. So keep that in mind. Next thing a lot of players are doing wrong in their practice sessions, and you have heard me say this before, they are practicing with a partner. There's two downsides to practicing with a partner. Number one, actually there's probably a half dozen, but let's talk about a couple of them. Number one, when you practice with a partner who is not as good as you are not picking up anything. You're not learning anything unless you are picking up things just by giving them instruction, which is actually a good thing. Teaching actually helps your game because it reinforces things, assuming you know what the hell you're talking about. Number two, it very often turns into playing games, and playing is not practicing, which brings up another point. If you are playing, you are not practicing. A lot of APA players play every week. They play their friends between sessions. They're always playing. And then the next thing you know, you're an APA 4 in the year 2010, and you're an APA 4 in the year 2021. Why? Because all you've done is play for the last 10 years or so. Keep that in mind. Playing is not practicing. Next item, practicing when you are not in the right condition to practice. If things are not going well for you, if you have an injury, if you are really tired, it does not help you to put in high reps under those conditions, because, especially if you have an injury, what you're doing is you are adapting to that injury while you are practicing, and it becomes part of your stroke, your stance, your bridge, whatever, wherever the injury is, it is going to be affected by that. And the longer you have the injury and you practice on that injury, the more it's going to affect your stroke when you get better. So once you improve and you're feeling better and your back doesn't hurt or your shoulder doesn't hurt or whatever, you have now reinforced a stroke that is out of line, a bridge that is out of line, a stance that is out of line. So I know you guys love the game and you want to practice and you want to play and all of this stuff, but if you have an injury with your shoulder, your back, your arm, whatever it is, you need to take some time off and recover, because practicing with an injury is not good for your game. Next, practicing for the wrong game. What does that mean? If you're a straight pool player and you're not practicing straight pool, you're not getting better at straight pool. Now, if you are an 8-ball player and you're practicing shooting balls in rotation like 9-ball or 10-ball, you will improve your 8-ball game. But certain things don't cross and help the others. If you are practicing the wrong game, what good is it doing you? Okay, know what you're playing, know which games complement each other. It's very obvious, guys. Straight pool, 8-ball have a lot of similarities. Straight pool and 9-ball have only a couple similarities. You are not becoming a better straight pool player by playing balls in rotation in 9-ball. You may think you are, but it does not help your game. If you've got a 9-ball match coming up, don't practice your straight pool during that time period when you're preparing for that match. If you hope to be very good at 8-ball, running balls in rotation in 9-ball, 10-ball, rotation, the game itself, are all going to make you better players. But keep in mind, you should be practicing for what you're going to be playing. Next, practicing only what you're good at. Everybody wants to shoot the long draw shot when they're good at the long draw shot. But you find out the guy can't shoot a follow shot down the table. Why? Because he shot so many long draw shots. Because they're flashy and beautiful and he loves to do it, but he can't shoot a follow shot. Make sure you are practicing the things you need to practice. These are, number one, the things that come up the most. Number two, the things that come up the most and you are weak at. These are the things you need to practice. Practice things that have multiple uses. The reason I love the acid test is because it brings in so many facets of your game in one simple shot. You cannot shoot that ball from halfway down the table into that pocket repeatedly with the wrong stance, the wrong stroke, no follow through, bad aim. If you have any of those things going wrong, you are not going to be able to pull off that drill. That's why I like it. It incorporates all these different things. If you're practicing something that has one purpose and one purpose only, then it is not helping you. You need to find things that are going to have multiple purposes. If you don't practice anything at all, if you do not do one drill, what you should be doing is shooting balls in rotation. If you don't do anything else, throw 3 or 4 balls on the table and shoot them in numerical order, which brings me to another point. If you can't run 4 balls in rotation, stop trying to run 9-ball racks. You're not going to get there that way. You have to use low numbers and knock them out that way. When you can run 3 on a regular basis, then you run 4, and then you run 5, and you work your way up. That's the only way you're going to be running 9-ball racks. You're not going to just rack 9-ball over and over again, shoot them off, and like a miracle, you couldn't run 4, but now you can run 9. I'm sorry, it's not going to happen. Which brings me to the next point. Stop wasting time. I kind of talked about the trick shot thing, but if you break to run a rack, and that's your intention, is to run a rack. Let's say you are a guy that can run 9-ball racks every now and then. Stop ending the run after you miss. Take ball in hand and continue with the balls on the table. To re-rack over and over again, unless you are practicing your break, is a waste of time. It takes time to rack balls. And the time it takes some of you to rack the balls, you could have gotten in 10 or 15 more reps actually shooting balls and working on your follow-through and things like that. So stop wasting time racking just because the ghost beat you. The ghost beats you, okay. You chuck up the point, and now you finish out the rack because you're wasting a lot of time racking these balls over and over again. Next point, know why you are at the table. You are at the table to do something specific. You are learning, which means there's a shot you don't know that you are now working on learning that shot. You are practicing, which means you know the shot or the group of shots or the position, and you are now practicing that thing that you just got down. You are playing. Everybody knows what that means. You got a friend over, you're shooting balls, you're shooting the shit, and you're not getting in any real practice. Or you're testing. You're using the BU test or something like that, and you're keeping score. You are testing. Know why you're at the table. Now, certain things can be tested and scored as far as your training goes. So let's say you are shooting 9-ball racks. Keep score. How often do you beat the ghost? All right, now you're taking the test and the practice and putting them together. If you're trying to learn a shot, but you are testing yourself at the same time, that's not what happens. You test yourself after you learn something. Okay, you don't test yourself while you're trying to learn it. If I'm trying to learn how to draw this 7-ball shot off of 2 rails and back down here towards this corner, and I get down on the shot and I shoot it, trying to learn that shot, okay, I got it. If I write down one success and then I shoot it over and over again and over again, that's fine because I know how to do the shot. But if you're learning to do the shot and you can't make it do that, you don't need to score that. We know you can't do it, all right? If you're doing the acid test, we know you know how to draw the ball back. We know you know how to shoot a ball into the pocket. You shoot 50 of those and score them, now you've got a gauge on how you have performed for that particular drill. But you're not learning the shot. You already know what's involved in the shot. Also make sure you are testing apples with apples. I see so many videos that people they're scoring themselves on drills that change every time you shoot them. If the drill changes every time you shoot it, you better use large numbers or your numbers don't have any meaning. Now, if you're shooting 9-ball racks and you're scoring your performance against the ghost, if you count 3 racks, you don't have any numbers that are worth listening to. You need to shoot 10 of those racks, keep score, shoot 10 more, keep score, shoot 10 more, keep score, and then average them together. So now you have legitimate, the rule of large numbers. If you're using small numbers to measure your growth, you take a test one day and then you take it the next day and you did 40% better. I got bad news. You did not get 40% better overnight. You need to average these things out over time and stop progressing when you haven't really progressed. Hey, I couldn't shoot a draw shot yesterday and now I made one that came the length of the table. You didn't learn to draw shot. You got lucky most likely. You did something right that you weren't doing before. Make sure you have it down before you get excited about it. Write down how great you are and then find out when you get back to the table, oh no, your draw shot is actually a stop shot now, or you scooped the ball off the table 3 times in a row. Make sure you know it before you start chucking it up and going to more and more difficult things. There are dozens of these things, guys, as I said. There's no way we're going to cover them all today, but hit me in the comments and let me know some of the mistakes you guys think that people make when they are practicing. And the number one problem that no one talks about is the fact that a lot of people never practice. That is probably the biggest mistake you can make when it comes to practicing.